you can. Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't hurt to. And then these are the heat controls here. I'll show you how to use those. Yeah, I don't mind showing you how to do that stuff.
In their year in review,
you need to know that it's not going to be broken.
Year in review,
just because you touch
is
it.
under attack. No, the media is the attack dog.
I'm
The
afraid.
citizenry are being bitten by
How many
false
times does the Bible say
information
fear not? 365 times.
Sources of information. That's why.
And I think if God said it that many times, I think He's a little serious about that.
You're going to have an opinion, but Janet, you're transparent about where your opinion's coming from. You're not pretending to be neutral.
That is a
You're
problem.
saying, look, I bring a
Well, we'll see how many
question
people
like I do.
Justin has
And
tonight.
we say, look, this is where we're coming from, why we're coming
If
from
he only
it,
has a few,
and
then
we
he'll be
invite
coming
you
with
to
us
consider
as
the
we
claims of
do
Christ and
that.
His
So
word.
then
when you look
and
at this
I'm sure then there's that bathroom right at the gas station that's right at the women's shelter, and I'm sure that Justin will have no trouble stopping there.
By reviewing the past year and looking forward with joyous anticipation to the year
I
that's
would
ahead.
follow him in this,
And I'd like to
but
thank
I can't keep up too good with the change
It's
on now.
easy to be joyful about 2020 and the years ahead because God's in
I'm going to go
control.
ahead and get into this faster lane real quick.
Watch out.
Yep.
Found
Yep,
this
I
week
see
is
him.
Tuesday through Friday, February 4 through 7. Speakers include
Thank you,
Priscilla
folks.
Shire, D.A. Horton, Francis
Very nice
Chan,
of them to do
all
that.
speaking on the theme for such a time as this. Learn more about the speakers.
And I was able to do that safely because not only did I signal, but I got their attention by slowly moving over, giving them time to stop.
More details at founderspeaker.org. Founders Week is sponsored in part by Christian Healthcare Ministries. What will the world look like in
And
the last
you're
days?
using up to the
One
stop
significant
instead of
truth the Bible
just
offers
pumping your
is a
foot
look at
down.
New
Yep.
Babylon.
Well, you
And
can't do that
is
in
the
this.
correct way to do
You
that.
can't do that in this anyway, so...
This city, the center of the Antichrist world government.
Pay attention to how you're stopping. You're doing it like you should. With or without them.
Yep.
You're doing it the right way.
To come. Join us
Good job.
Saturday morning at 10 on Moody Radio Northwest.
Need the defrost.
With us on news, I'm Keith Peters in Washington. The Senate could begin its impeachment trial as early as Wednesday now that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says she'll deliver the articles of impeachment next week. Capitol Hill correspondent Bob
She's crazy.
Yeah, she's a... But Mom, come on, she's a princess. We can't say that her Royal Highness is crazy. That's the crime of insulting the princess. That's a terrible, violent crime to insult Her Majesty.
What is she doing? Trying to control the president.
Yep.
And we're letting her. Why don't we impeach her?
Because California won't do it. That's where she's elected out of.
Well, what are the other members of the House doing? Letting her run the House?
Yep.
Why? Where are the other leaders in the House?
Oh, I don't know. Right now, I'm going to pay attention to getting us down this hill safely. Politics just gets me distracted, man.
Texas Governor Abbott says the state will reject the resettlement of new refugees, becoming the first state known to do so.
That guy's doing snowplow in front of his truck.
Released
Yep.
Friday.
Unfortunately, private contractors like that are not allowed to, except under an emergency declaration, allowed to plow the public streets. They can only plow private property.
Thousands of refugees each year.